What's up, guys? Today we're going to take a look at the Warlock's pet, otherwise known as the Thrall. Take a look at each of his skills and when to use each of them. So, let's get started. So before I begin, I will mention I'm not going to go into super detail on how each skill works. You can check out my other guide I made for that. It breaks down all the Warlock skills, so if you want to know that, go check that out. This is going to be more of like a how and when to use each of the pet's skills. So, let's open up and take a look at the pet. First thing we're going to look at is the pet itself. You have two tiers you can put 3 points into. Generally, you're not going to put a third point in. You'll use this side, the defensive side, for PvP, and the offensive side for PvE. Usually, you can choose to take the defensive side for PvE if you feel like your pet is getting hit a bunch. You can take this third point in PvE as well to apply target to your enemy for 2 seconds. Usually you don't take it. You almost never will take this third point in the defensive tree. So, moving on from those, we have our big cooldown tree. Time distortion. Time distortion is generally the preferred PvP choice. Once in a while you'll use soul burn. It's a personal choice. Sometimes you'll try to use that. Obliterate really doesn't ever get used in PvP. Maybe in world PvP, if that's your thing, try to send your pet into a group of people, spec it all the way up to get big pull and stun and explode it on that. But outside that, Obliterate really doesn't see much play in PvP. You could try to use it a little in PvE while leveling up or something, wait till your pet's about to run out of duration and then use it to blow up. But in PvE, your go-to is gonna be Soul Burn generally most of the time. You can use Time Distortion, but Soul Burn is a much better party buff. 50% crit damage, it gives everyone awakened skill, especially in like a pug. It's much safer to use. If you're in like a 4-man group or something like that, Time Distortion could prove to be more useful. Or if you have 2 Warlocks in the group, one runs Soul Burn, the other runs Time Distortion. It takes a good bit of coordination though for Time Distortion to be used with other people. So yeah, generally Soul Burn in PvE and Time Distortion in PvP for the most part. So moving down the list, next we have our Q&E for our pet, which is Onrush and Fall In, which is basically just your attack and call. Fall In, where you call your pet to you. Actually, it's an AoE around you that does a fair bit of damage. Generally, though, you're not running into mobs to call your pet on top of you to do damage, but you do have to stand still for Fall In to work. It's on a pretty short cooldown, so you can call your pet fairly often. Onrush, on the other hand, you do not have to stand still to activate. You can actually tier it up to be a taunt with 1 point, a stun over here, and a knockback on this one. Generally, you'll use the knockback in PvP against like melee enemies, usually, and the stun will be more utilized in PvE. In PvP, you will use it a couple times as well, maybe against like some range classes like Force Master or another Warlock who won't try to get on top of you as much, but it's another personal choice for PvE or PvP. I tend to use the knockback more often than the stun. So going down to the abilities, we checked out those. We have Gravity Well, which is just an AoE pull. You can tier it up to pull more times or cancel defensive pulls. All 3 of these will be cast by the familiar, the Thrall, the pet, lots of names, on its own. So the middle tier is just a AoE circle that appears around the pet that does an increase in attack power for everyone standing in it. The right side is Focus Recovery. Generally you'll use this middle tier here, the attack power one, PvE. If you have enough points in PvP, ideally you would tier this up, but you're most likely not going to have enough points at level 45 in PvP for this, so you're probably not going to be putting any points in here most of the time, but Hollow Ground usually doesn't ever get used as well. But it's pretty much just Circle of Wrath for PvE, Gravity Well for PvP, if you have enough points, but you probably won't at 45. The last skill a pet has is Nether Pulse. No points in it. Pretty straightforward. He just fires a bolt. 18-second cooldown. Does it a little bit of AoE damage. Gives you 3 spectral orbs. That's all right. Nothing major. You can't control it. It shoots it on its own. You can tier it up to give increased range attack speed. You can make it do extra damage to grappled enemies, stuff like that. You're probably not going to put points into that. Again, if you have extra points, this is someplace you might put it for PvE. But for PvP, you're most likely going to take Void Slash. Essentially only has a 3-second cooldown, and it'll knock up stunned, dazed, or knocked down enemies. It seems to be a little janky sometimes. He'll wait just a little too long, and he'll start to cast it on a CC'd enemy. You'll see the animation go up in the air, but the enemy doesn't get knocked up. There's no way you can control this. He'll have to just do it on its own. More often than not, it usually works pretty well. It might be a ping-related issue, I'm not entirely sure, but this is generally your go-to choice for PvP. So we'll take a look at the pet. The pet has a normal duration of 24 seconds. You can tier it up, defensive, offensive adds 8 seconds for 32 seconds. You can send your pet in with a call, or, call him back, and when you call him back, he will stop attacking. Now this is the only way to make your pet stop attacking. If you attack again, he'll go ahead and start autoing again. If he's at range, he'll use a range attack. If he goes into melee, he'll use his melee attack. You can see him swipe a little there. There you go. So, yeah, pretty straightforward. Like I said, you have to stand still to call the pet to you, but you don't have to stand still to send him out. Most of his stuff he automatically casts on his own. Now, there is a little bit of animation canceling you can do with the pet. The first is you can send the pet in with your attack and call him to you. If you do it quick enough, you can apply the CC while still having your pet on top of you. Now this is very ping reliant. You can't do this with high ping, and even then it takes precise timing to do it correctly. Now you can see that he started his animation towards the enemy, but I pulled him back quick enough. It's not just as simple as spamming the buttons, you need to be able to time it correctly for him to land on it. The other one is we can actually animation cancel time distortion when we call him. You can see that the circle is not on top of him, but the actual CD reduction is on top of him. Even though the circle looked like it was over on the left-hand side, the area around the pet was still there. So if you ever see that happen, or the circle doesn't look like it's on top of the pet, don't stand in the circle, stand on the pet. The pet still has the CD reduction on top of him because you canceled that animation. So that's just a little tip to remember. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot to the pet. It's a pretty straightforward pet. Like I said, it's pretty standard. You just send it out, call it back. Nothing much to it. A little bit of animation canceling. It's about the only animation canceling the Warlock has, really, to be honest. So it's pretty cool. Looks cool too. Pretty straightforward. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about the pet, if you want to know anything else, if I forgot something, please let me know in the comments down below as usual. Come watch me over on Twitch, Karth_WS, if you want to check out some Warlock gameplay. But other than that, if you guys don't have any questions, I'll see you guys later.